Welcome to this video. Today I'm doing a book study of a book called As a Man Thinketh, written by James Allen in the year 1903. And this book may seem like something you may have words that you may have heard from before. But that's because a lot of this book is quoted by many people. Let's look at one quotation to start with. They themselves are makers of themselves. By virtue of the thoughts which they choose and encourage, that mind is the master weaver, both of the inner garment of character and the outer garment of circumstance. And that as they may have hitherto woven in ignorance and pain, they may now weave in enlightenment and happiness. So the main task of this book is actually it's a self-help book which teaches you how to be happy, how can you live even in the future, you can build circumstances which produce happiness. So until now, you may have been thinking in such a manner that you actually, without intending, caused harm to yourself. But now with this kind of learning, you will know how to develop thoughts and retain thoughts and grow thoughts which will actually produce happiness inside you. So let's look at the first chapter. The book is divided into 7 chapters. The first chapter is thought and character. Now, every thought is a seed of the future. We need to be aware of what we are planting. We could be planting flowers or weeds. So what are we planting? Are we planting good thoughts? Are we planting good intentions? Are we planting thoughts that build our character, our honesty, our straightforwardness, our lack of any deceit? Are we planting such thoughts, or do we habitually think it's normal to be lying, it's normal to be deceitful, it's normal to be hypocritical? Do we do this kind of do we have this kind of approach in life? So are we always aiming to be kind to people who are in a more unfortunate circumstance, or do we just think that okay, it's their karma, let them suffer, I don't have anything to do with it? What is the kind of thinking we have with whatever we are facing? That thinking is the seed that we sow for ourselves, as the character that we make for ourselves. And in few other chapters we'll see even the circumstance that we are in also is because of the kind of thoughts we have. So let's look at a quotation of Buddha says, suffering follows an evil thought as the wheels of the cart follow the ox that draws it. If one endure in purity of thought, joy follows him as his own shadow. So this is a quotation from James Allen, and now what he says is that just as suffering, as the Buddha said, follows as the wheels follow the cart that pulls it, suffering follows when an evil thought is produced. Similarly, pure thoughts always generate joy and happiness. So man makes himself with noble, helpful, kind thoughts, and thus he makes himself a good man. With malicious, hateful, angry, and deceitful thoughts, he makes himself a worse man. So very often when we have people with such negativity come to our houses, and we automatically feel a sort of negative aura when they come, and there is a nervousness around them. We are very worried about what to feed them, how does the house look, how are we dressed, because they come with such an aura of negativity, such a level of judgmentalness. They are so without any affection, any empathy for our lives, that we immediately are aware that they are people who put us on an edge. Now we can immediately be aware that what kinds of thoughts they must be nursing, that they have such an aura inside them, around them. Similarly, when some people come into the home, they seem to be like blessings who come. They are empathetic immediately. You just want to love them and please them, and you are not at all worried about anything concerned with them. That is the good aura that they have, because they are good human beings. Their thoughts are so pure and beautiful. Now let us look at how he can change his life and what is the method he can choose to develop his thinking. So one way is that he can always choose good thoughts and retain those good thoughts through self-analysis and reflection, and learn from experience on what are good thoughts which give good outcomes. And similarly, he can learn from experience which are the bad thoughts which give a bad outcome from experience. And he can control his experience and thus he can control his mind towards saying that, okay, these kinds of thoughts gave me a negative experience and made me unhappy, so I must avoid those kinds of thoughts. And what are the thoughts which gave me a good experience, and what happened after that was really good. So let me continue with these kinds of thoughts. So with experience, one learns which are the good thoughts and which are the bad thoughts. There's no standard way in this method. Now, this is the end of the first chapter. The second chapter is the effect of thought on circumstance. A man's mind might be likened to a garden, which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. But whether cultivated or neglected, it must and will bring forth. If no useful seeds are put into it, then an abundance of useless weed seeds will fall therein and will continue to produce their kind. So a man's mind is just like a garden. If we do not tend it, if we are not careful with it, we do not plan it. We do not plan all the things inside our mind, and we do not develop certain aspects of our mind. Our mind might, what is actually our mind? It consists of our knowledge, our memory, our skills, our thinking, logical thinking abilities. So that's what our mind is. So if we do not, in these various compartments, develop our mind properly, like how one would develop a garden, it will be filled with garbage. And this is something which is happening to all of us, because we are automatically scrolling down all kinds of social media and filling our mind with all kinds of garbage, to the extent that we are unable to stay alone without a device, because we constantly need new garbage to put inside this mind. Our mind is unable to think on its own and stay on its own, analyzing and reflecting on whatever is there in our lives, and actually develop and create something, instead of just filling it with nonsense. So this is the chapter which talks about how thought affects our circumstance. Now, I'd like to share in this case something which happened to me. There's a particular child in our building complex who has been stealing things from my son, who's a special needs adult. Now, he also bullies him and upsets him. So for the first 1 month or so, I was nursing some terrible thoughts about that child. He's around 12 years old. And I had some good thoughts also, that I must try to improve him. I must work on helping that child. I never wanted to complain to the parents, because he's a single child and very loved and all. But they don't know that the child is quite wicked inside. But the bad thoughts were very prominent inside my mind all the time. So one day what happened is, a child came running to me about something my son had done. I immediately shouted at that child without thinking, and I later discovered that the child was actually trying to inform me, and there was nothing wrong in what he was doing. I apologized to the child after that, and I realized how my foul thinking caused a wrong thing to happen. That was learned was, watch your thoughts. So even when it comes to even if you're right about a particular person, but you constantly are thinking that only thing about that person, you may lose fact of the fact that there are many other things about that other person which you don't know. There'll be good things, there'll be right things, and because you're always focused on the negative thought, the negative aspect of that person, you lose out on the positive aspects, or the factual aspect. So this is how I got clouded in my thinking, and reacted immediately. Even though I come from a space where kindness and helpfulness is extremely important to me, but at that moment I lost my temper and I was unkind to that child. So let's go on. By generally watering good thoughts, weeding out negative thought plants, one might good thought plants and weeding out negative thought plants, one shapes one's mind. In doing this, we realize how we shape our character, and also how our lives shape to become happier and more peaceful. So, when we are alone and when we are watching our thoughts, it's a good idea to look at whether our thoughts are good thoughts. Are they going to lead to happiness? Are they going to lead to greater peace? Or are they going to lead to conflict? Are they going to cause conflict in our family, in our relationships, in our work, or are they going to cause happiness and peace in our work? So it's very good to go. The thoughts keep developing on their own. So the thing is that if you keep watching your thoughts and weeding away thoughts which are going to cause conflict, then you will come to a point where over time you will have in your mind lots of thoughts of peace. So circumstances that we find ourselves are seeds of past thoughts and actions, which we call karma. So one of these things, like for example, it is said in our books that a person who is poor is usually poor because he tends to steal. Now, I had a maid whom I really loved and who I did a lot for. She worked with me for 15 years. But we used to regularly find money missing. Once we found some gold missing. I found some saris missing. But I never suspected her because she had such a soft and loving temperament that I could never suspect her. She would never speak a word also over the day. She used to work the entire day. One particular day, almost 15 years after service with us, we caught her stealing money from my husband's wallet, and with our own eyes we saw it. And after that, our trust completely went away, and in a few months time she also quit our job. So she didn't know, and I wish I could tell her this, that this continuous stealing that she had done has sown the karma for her to be poor in future births also. So honesty, straightforwardness will always give you a good birth, an easier birth, a less difficult birth. And you, if you don't follow these rules, you're going to build yourself circumstances on the future which are not attractive. Now, men do not attract what they want, but what they are. If they are good human beings, if they are already kind human beings, they will enter families which are kind and good. If they are deceitful, lying, hypocritical, manipulative, power hungry human beings, they will be born in similar families. When you're born in such families, there is only feuds and anger and all kinds of family disputes. Now we create a circumstance, then we are fighting them. Instead, we must try to change our thoughts, which created those circumstances in the first place. So what happens is that we have already created some circumstances and we are now ending up fighting those circumstances. The first thing to do is don't create those circumstances in the first place. So first you look at the circumstance, you try and think logically what you could have done which created that circumstance, and now see whether you are still doing that same thing or now have you changed. Just as anything we need to actively work towards it. Similarly, we create the circumstance we want. So here, James Allen gives three examples of how our thoughts shape our circumstance. Now, a poor man who is lazy but wants to get out of his wretched circumstance, yet does not do the hard work to do so. That's logical. Similarly, a rich man who has an unhealthy body, thanks to overeating, complains of his ill health but refuses to alter his eating habits. An employer who profits by paying low wages to the staff goes bankrupt but blames circumstances and not himself for it. So the thing is, the fact of the matter is that this law, which is called karma, is absolutely uniform for everybody, rich or poor, intelligent or stupid, any kind of human being, it's the same. If you do good, good will come back to you. If you do bad, bad will come back to you. So if you're bankrupt today, it is because you have done some wrong in the past. Or if you do not take care of your health and you overeat, you are unhealthy, then you're automatically going to cause diseases to yourself. So you have to work to build a better circumstance for yourself, which we call the law of karma, which is the logical consequence of our actions and thoughts of our previous births. And because it is spread over many births, we do not realize, see that we feel that, okay, in this birth, I never actually stole, or I never actually deceived anybody. Why am I still in such a poor circumstance? But it might have been that in some past birth you were like that, but in future births you will be better. You know, one thing, like I have always had workers for me, helping me in my household work. But whenever I used to make the bed, I used to get this feeling that in some previous past birth of mine, I have been a maid, and I have only spent my entire life cleaning somebody else's house. Now, somehow I get this sense I used to get this sense. And my feeling towards my helpers has always been super kind. I will never extract more work than necessary. I will do some part of the work before they come. I'll be as kind as I can be. I'll never, if I get angry, I'll really hate myself. I rarely get angry at any helper of mine. That's because I have experienced in from somewhere deep within me, I know what it means to be in that person's shoes. So it's like that. I mean, it is possibly a good learning from past karma. But then I also thank my stars that maybe because I worked that hard, that I have a house so large, and I have such comfort that I can afford all this help and all these things. So I always attribute some good karma of that past births that gives me today, though I never earned any of it, everything has just fallen in my lap. Now, one can never judge what could be the circumstance of another's man's life, because there are these things are extremely, deep rooted and complex. So this is a beautiful quote here: "Who am I to judge another when I myself am walking imperfectly?" It's tempting to think that we are suffering because we are too good. Also, the truth may be that we are suffering on account of our wrong thoughts sown in the past. So there are many kinds of wrong thoughts, and just like there are many kinds of good thoughts, one of the wrong thoughts which Helen Keller talks about is self-pity. Self-pity is our worst enemy. If we yield to it, we can never do anything good in this world. So don't feel sorry for it. Oh, why this always happens to me? I am the only one. Others do not have this problem. I have this problem. Do not think like that. It's the worst thing you can do. You look at a problem, see what is the best way to overcome it. Good thoughts and actions can never produce bad results. Bad thoughts and actions can never produce good results. So there are like two kinds of people. You can be a negative person who's always afraid of change, or you can be a positive person who's looking for new experiences and welcomes change. So we understand all this in the natural world, that whatever man sowed, that so he reaps. If he sows wheat, he's going see wheat seeds, he's going to get a wheat plant. If he sows an apple seed, he is not going to get an orange tree. He's going to get an apple tree. But this aspect of the natural world is also true for the moral and mental world. So if we are so morally good things. So what do you mean by morally good things? Morally good things is that which is good for everybody. That action, thought, feeling which is good for everybody, which harms nobody, which helps people, helps our evolution, is morally right. That's all there is to moral. What do you mean by what is moral and what is good? So, suffering is always the effect of wrong thought in some direction. It is an indication that the individual is out of harmony with himself, with the law of his being. The sole and supreme use of suffering is to purify, to burn out all that is useless and impure. Suffering ceases for him who is impure. There could be no object in burning who is pure. Suffering ceases for him who is pure. There could be no object in burning gold after the dross has been removed. And a perfectly pure and enlightened being does not suffer. So, there is no suffering in the lives of our masters, of the enlightened people who have established the Theosophical Society, or any of the great gurus. Perhaps this is why usually death is accompanied by some level of suffering and pain. It is a way of the soul retreating out of the body, trying to maximize the past karmic debts and more. So basically, what I felt in this matter is that many people suffer a lot when they die. Towards the end, they get all kinds of funny illnesses suddenly come to them, and they're suffering for the last few months or years. And I often think it's a good way of dying, because in a way they are paying back some karmic debts at the end of their lives, and they are actually will lead them to easier lives in the future. So suffering is a way of purifying our lives in some way, because we are balancing the negativity that we had done in the past. And also by the suffering, we also think that what is it that we have done in the past, and how should we not do it now. So that is one thing that we, in fact, to a large extent, the reason why I even started such a deep study of theosophy was the amount of suffering I had raising my special child. He was not really toilet trained until the age of 10, and he used to pass motion sometimes 3 times a day. And his way of passing motion was peculiar. He would pass partly in his underwear and partly in the toilet, and then he would try to wash his underwear in the toilet. So the whole toilet would be full of feces. And what would happen is I would have to clean, and then 2 to 3 times a day, when you do that, you start seeing you feel it such a huge amount of suffering, especially in older child when he does that. And it was very, very hard to do that cleaning, to be continuously kind to the child, to continuously try to teach him. And of course now he's completely toileting, there's no problem now. But that time, that thinking was that why am I suffering so much? What did I do so wrong that I'm suffering like this? And that made me research more into theosophy. And that's how all the learning the theosophy has given me, and the peace and happiness that theosophy has brought in my life. So, good thoughts give good circumstances, lead to happiness. Bad thoughts lead to bad circumstances, lead to misery. Happiness is mental harmony, unhappiness is mental inharmony. What do you mean by happiness? When you're mentally at peace, everything is relaxed, there's no conflict inside you, you're completely in a state of internal bliss, that is happiness. Unhappiness is mental inharmony. Law, not confusion, is a dominating principle in the universe. So we need to understand that this is the law, that good things lead to good outcomes. Good thoughts lead to good outcomes. That is a law. Justice and not injustice is the soul and substance of life. So everything is just. There's nobody unequal. If you are treating somebody poorer than you in a bad fashion, you will be treated badly by somebody, or you will be in the position of that poor person and be treated badly. So justice is absolutely universal. Only thing is it may take years or births for that to happen. And righteousness, not corruption, is the molding and moving force in the spiritual world of the garment of the spiritual garment of the world. Now, what is that? It's a very important thing to understand what is righteousness. Righteousness is what our masters live in. All the greatest gurus, the greatest teachers, the Buddha, everything, they all talk about righteousness. Righteousness means doing the right thing, thinking the right thing, having the right goals. Everything that you do should be right. So that is why you have in the eightfold path of Buddha, how suffering can cease. The way the Buddha calculated is through right living, right this, right that, the eight of them. So right views, right intention, right speech, right action, right living, right, right, right. L is right. E stands for right effort, right meditation, and right concentration. So L stands for something that I'm not able to remember. So there is this is something very important. What is righteous living? So do everything right to the best of your knowledge. What is right? You may, with experience, realize that that may have been wrong, but you may also, with experience, realize that was right. So this is the way forward in life. So let a man radically alter his thoughts, and he will be astonished at the rapid transformation it will effect in the material conditions of his life. Men imagine that thought can be kept secret, but it cannot. It rapidly crystallizes into a habit, and habit solidifies into circumstance. So you are what you think. Your thoughts create your reality, and there is a direct connection between the two. So bestial thoughts crystallize into habits of drunkenness and sensuality, which solidify into circumstance of destitution and disease. Impure thoughts of every kind crystallize into enervating and confusing habits, which solidify into distracting and adverse circumstances. Thoughts of fear, doubt, indecision crystallize into weak, unmanly, and irresolute habits, which solidify into circumstance of failure, indigence, and slavish dependence. Lazy thoughts crystallize into habits of uncleanliness and dishonesty, which solidify into circumstance of foulness and beggary. Hateful and condemnatory thoughts crystallize into habits of accusation and violence, which solidify into circumstance of injury and persecution. If you are harboring a lot of violence inside you, eventually you will create a circumstance in which that violence will be projected out. You will actually do that violence. Selfish thoughts of all kinds crystallize into habits of self-seeking, which solidify into circumstances more or less distressing. You will find that you are not getting the things you are always seeking. On the other hand, beautiful thoughts of all kinds crystallize into habits of grace and kindliness, which solidify into genial and sunny circumstance. Pure thoughts crystallize into habits of temperance and self-control, which solidify into circumstance of repose and peace. If you have ability to relax and to control yourself and be internally peaceful, you will always be in circumstances where such peace will be there around you. Thoughts of courage, self-reliance, decision, and decision crystallize into manly habits, which solidify into circumstance of success, plenty, and freedom. Energetic thoughts crystallize into habits of cleanliness and industry, which solidify into circumstance of pleasantness. Gentle and forgiving thoughts crystallize into habits of gentleness, which solidify into protective and preservative circumstances. Loving and unselfish thoughts crystallize into habits of self forgetfulness for others, which solidify into circumstance of sure and abiding prosperity and true riches. So, the more unselfish you are, the more good things happen to you. The more selfish you are, the less good things happen to you. So the more you help other people, you find that your needs automatically reduce, and you seem to be satisfied with even much less, and you are so happy in your life. You feel you are actually very rich, because that is the kind of life you live. A man cannot directly choose a circumstance, but he can choose his thoughts, so indirectly shape his circumstance. He cannot directly choose it, but when he chooses the right thoughts, he indirectly chooses his circumstance. So change your thoughts and you can change your own world. Now let's look at the next chapter, the effect of thought on health and the body. What is the effect of thought on health and the body? Disease and health, like a circumstance, are rooted in thought. Sickly thoughts will express themselves through a sickly body. The people who live, excuse me, the people who live in fear of disease are the people who get it. Anxiety quickly demoralizes the whole body and lays it open to the entrance of disease. I think this is something during Corona we all practice very hard not to worry about Corona. So that was often said, and everyone said that, and there were a lot of things that were done not to allow anxiety to come. While impure thoughts, even if not physically indulged, will soon shatter the nervous system. So if you are always constantly having impure thoughts, and even if you do not indulge in that physically, it will shatter the inner system. Strong, pure, and happy thoughts build up the body in vigor and grace. Out of a clean heart comes a clean life and a clean body. Out of a defiled mind produces a defiled life and a corrupt body. So this is something I just took off from the internet. How emotions harm your body. Anger weakens the liver. Grief weakens the lungs. Worry weakens the stomach, which we know, like when we are frightened or worried about something, we have indigestion. Stress weakens the heart and brain. So many people we hear of heart attacks due to stress, and strokes, brain strokes due to stress. Fear weakens the kidney. So thoughts affect our body. Dr. Candice Pert, a neurophysicist, along with countless colleagues, has been mapping the brain and pathways of something called neuropeptides through the body. After 15 years of research, she and her colleagues formed one conclusion. The thought themselves invoke chemical reactions in the brain called neuropeptides. So what she found, that thoughts evoke certain chemicals in our brain. So it's not that the chemicals are evoking thoughts. The thoughts themselves are evoking certain chemicals called neuropeptides in the brain, which is affecting the brain. So that is the thing. And here is another emotional pain chart and how certain emotions can harm your body. For example, the neck, refusing to see the other side of the question, very stubborn. A person can have a stiff neck. Shoulders represent our ability to carry our experience in our life joyously. We make life a burden by our attitude. So if we carry our problems in a joyful way, our shoulders will not be affected. But if we carry it in a painful way, it may cave in, or may develop scoliosis, something else, some other problem of the bone. Spine represents the support of life, and so on. So there's so many such things. And there is this beautiful book called Heal Your Life, which one should read, which really tells you about how the different emotions affect the different parts of the body. So if you would protect your body, guard your mind. If you would renew your body, beautify your mind, thoughts of malice, envy, disappointment, despondency rob the body of its health and grace. Thoughts are our best physician. Negative thoughts of fear, anger, hatred, and suspicion make our bodies weak. Strong thoughts of courage, compassion, love, and trust make our bodies strong. Now, thought and purpose is our next chapter. Defining a purpose and creating thoughts that help achieve that purpose is important. So one is not waylaid by unnecessary thoughts. Self-control and concentration will develop with this with with this single-mindedness, which are character building, even if the purpose is not achieved. So if you have a thought, you develop you have a purpose, you develop the kinds of thoughts which will achieve the purpose, and you develop a single-mindedness to achieve that purpose. As the physically weak man can make them himself strong by carefully and patient training, so the man of weak thoughts can make them strong by exercising himself in right thinking. So the way to go about, developing the thought is to have a purpose and then work towards that purpose and see how single-minded concentration you have and how determined, what kind of determination and willpower you show. Once having formed a purpose, doubts and fears should be avoided with determination as they weaken our effort towards a purpose. So very often when we develop a purpose and we are somewhere, happy trying to achieve the purpose, and it's taking time to achieve, we may have a doubt on whether we have set the right goal. But that is, it can harm us if we think like that. So that's again a negative thought, which it's a weed, throw it out. Purpose was good. It is taking time, but it is still worthwhile to achieve, and continue working towards it. Purpose, energy, and power to do, and all strong thoughts cease when doubt and fear creep in. The will to do springs from the knowledge that we can do. He who has conquered doubt and fear has conquered failure. His every thought is allied with power, and all difficulties are bravely met and wisely uh, overcome. So one of the things is that we can be purposeful, but what comes always, you look at it, anything you take up, any task you take up, or any purpose you have in life, when you have a doubt, it takes away all your energy, and you are in such a self-doubting situation that you can't do anything further to achieve that thought. So this is a negative impact of doubt. So watch out for that. Now let's look at the next chapter, the thought factor in achievement. Every man is responsible for his character of strength of character and his weakness. He is responsible for how strong or weak he is. No man can change another. Each man changes himself, though he can help another. But the responsibility of change is in himself and no other. There can be no progress, no achievement without sacrifice. And a man's worldly success will be the measure that he sacrifices his confused animal thoughts and fixes his mind on the development of his plans and the strengthening of his resolution and self-reliance. And the higher he lifts his thoughts, the more manly, upright, and righteous he becomes. The greater will be his success, the more blessed and enduring will be his achievements. So whatever goals you set for yourself, see that they are high and that you work towards them. The way you work also should be noble, should be right, should be harmless, and should give energy to yourself and to your circumstance. The universe does not favor the greedy, the dishonest, the vicious, although on the mere surface it may sometimes appear to do so. It helps the honest, the magnanimous, the virtuous. All the great teachers of the ages have declared this in varying forms, and to prove and know it, a man has to persist in making himself more and more virtuous by lifting his thoughts. So, any amount you may think that, look at the world today, people who are rich seem to have done all kinds of negative things to become that rich, that famous, that wealthy. And there is no way to become famous and wealthy without doing some kind of compromise in your moral life. But that is not the case. Eventually, every person who does some immoral act and achieves, even if he has achieved wealth and money, is going to suffer in the future. And even if your morally upright life does not give you any fame or money, it will certainly give you happiness. So that is more valuable, and also it will eventually give you a circumstance where you will have achieved your goals even if you could not in this birth. Achievement of whatever kind is a crown of the effort, the diadem of thought. By the aid of self-control, resolution, purity, righteousness, and well-directed thought, a man ascends. By the aid of animality, indolence, impurity, corruption, and confusion of thought, a man descends. So it's how important it is to think clearly about everything. not to get confused, not to have doubts, but to be very clear on what is your objective in life, and are you going towards that objective every day, little by little and little at a time. So we need to understand that the achievement is the last. Actually, getting that final reward is the last of our journey. Our journey itself has to have a lot of resolution in being righteous. So, victories attained by right thought can only be maintained by watchfulness. Again, even after we achieve our goal, we cannot maintain that goal unless we are always on the right side. So, we have to watch ourselves, be mindful. Now, let's look at the sixth chapter. He visions and ideals. He who cherishes a beautiful vision, a lofty ideal in his heart, will one day realize it. He who cherishes a beautiful vision, lofty ideal. Now, Columbus cherished a vision of another world and he discovered it. Copernicus fostered the vision of multiplicity of worlds and a wider universe, and he revealed it. Buddha beheld the vision of a spiritual world of stainless beauty and perfect peace, and he entered into it. Cherish your visions, cherish your ideals, cherish the music that stirs in your heart, the beauty that forms in your mind, the loveliness that drapes in your purest thoughts. For out of them will grow all delightful conditions, all heavenly environment. Of these, if you but remain true to them, your world will at last be built. Opportunity comes to the one prepared. Never stop dreaming the ideal dream and working for it. One day it will be realized. And this is something, we live in a very unjust world. We live in a world where people are not accepted for what they are. And there's still a lot of racism, classism, everything that's still very wrong in this world. But one must stick with what we believe as right. And we must know the thing that deep inside we are all the same. We are all sparks of the divine, and we're all moving slowly towards that goal, evolving to become divine ourselves. So none of us, everyone's born in some circumstance, and they are working towards that goal. Some have more education, some have less education, but we are all of us in the same boat. The last chapter is serenity. A calm mind is the effect of a contemplative mind, which sees the causes of effects and vice versa, and all times seeks the truth in all the situations. Now, if you look at any statue of Buddha, in almost, 99% of the time, except when he's sleeping, is when his eyes are half closed and he is in meditation or in contemplation. Contemplation is extremely important to develop a calm mind. Calmness doesn't come by just wishing it. There will always be conflicting thoughts. There will always be negativity inside us. We have to work through it. We have to develop the reason to see the cause of our anxiety, of our unhappiness, and remove it. A calm demeanor is attractive to all. It's a very strange thing that we have moved into this apartment complex, and I have now suddenly we met about 150 people who are all new to us, and it was very strange that after about 2 months of knowing them and talking to them, at least 15 people told me, Vimal, I really admire how calm you are. I wasn't even aware that I was actually calm. Because actually the reality is that once you start studying theosophy on a regular basis, you really start weeding out a lot of negativity from inside you and start working on pure things. So pure things draw you more. Love draws you more. You are in a state of such a inner happiness that you can only share that happiness and that peace inside you. There's the reduction of conflict inside you makes you calm. Yes, I still have a long way to go. I know. The one person I would get extremely angry at it is my husband, and he will say, "You're nice to everybody except me." And I said, "Yes, you are the one person who you are my teacher, and I have to learn how to be calm even with you." So as humanity surges with uncontrolled passion, is tumultuous with ungoverned grief, is blown about by anxiety and doubt, only the wise man, only he whose thoughts are controlled and purified, makes the winds and the storms of the soul obey him. Tempest tossed souls, wherever they may be, under whatsoever conditions they may be, know this, that in the ocean of life, the isles of blessedness are smiling, and the sunny shore of your ideal awaits your coming. Keep your hand firmly upon the helm of thought. In the bark of your soul reclines a commanding master. He does not sleep. Wake him. Self control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. Say unto thee, peace, be still. Say unto your heart, peace be still. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this was useful for you. I would suggest you all read this book, and it's a small book, it's available free online. So, and then you will enjoy more this book and all that it says. I've taken only small extracts from the book. The book has a lot more matter, and it will be very helpful at all stages. And I would suggest that read this once a year, every year of your life, and you will really it will really help you to remind you of the things to keep in mind while living one's life. Thank you so much.